All right, I'd like to call this meeting of the Amherst School Committee to order at 6:34 on Tuesday, January 21st, 2025. I'm Sarah Marshall. Because we have a member attending remotely, we will take the roll. Irv Rhodes.
Here.
Deb
Here.
Leonard. Jennifer Schau.
Here.
Bridget Hines.
Here.
And I'm here, so we can begin. So, according to the town charter, this committee, as well as the town council and some other boards, reorganize every year. So, we will first let Dr. Z manage the election of the chair, and then that takes effect immediately, and then that person can manage election of the vice chair and the secretary. All right, so take it away, Dr. Z.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to open the floor up for any nominations for the position of chair of the Amherst School Committee.
I'd like to nominate Jennifer Schau.
Okay,
Second.
all right.
I'm not sure we need point of order. I don't think we need nomination, seconds
Irv?
for nomination.
Sarah Marshall.
You'd like to nominate Sarah Marshall?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other nominations on the floor? All right, hearing none, I'll open up for Sarah Marshall. Do you accept the nomination?
I do.
Jennifer Shaw, do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
I will give you each about 1 minute to say any words that you would like to the fellow committee members around why they should give you their vote. Maybe 2 minutes. I'll start with you, Sarah.
Thank you. I've enjoyed this experience of being chair this last year. It has not been easy, but I feel I've learned the ropes. I'm comfortable in the role. Feel I have a good relationship with committee members and the superintendent and the people I've been working with to get these meetings organized. I've tried hard to keep committee members informed and well prepared and ready to carry out the business efficiently, and I'd be happy to do it again. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I will start the clock over.
Nope. Oh, sorry.
I'm chairing this section. I'm going to start the clock over. Jennifer, your 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Bridget, for the nomination. I'm honored. I have been serving on the Amherst School Committee and the Regional School Committee for 3 years. This will be my 4th year. I have a lot of experience with meetings, managing meetings, both in this context and other contexts. And I would value the opportunity to take on a leadership role. I think that I have a good grasp on seeing the big picture, as well as the details of how the committee runs and how meetings run. And I would value the opportunity to serve in this way. Thank you.
Thank you. You both stayed under your minute. I love it. All right, so I'm going to open up for a vote. I will call each member. You are to state the name of the nominee that you will be voting for. Starting virtually, Irv,
Sarah Marshall.
Deb,
Jennifer Schau.
Jennifer,
Jennifer Schau.
Bridget,
Jennifer Schau.
Sarah.
Sarah Marshall.
All right. Amherst Committee has a new chair. Jennifer Shaw received 3 votes. Sarah Marshall received 2. I now hand the meeting over to our new chair, Jennifer Shaw.
Thank you, Dr. Z. And thank you very much to Sarah Marshall for serving as chair for the past year. It can't have been easy to come in as a new school committee member and start serving as chair at your first meeting, which I think you did a year ago. So we really appreciate your service. I understand that I would like to reorder the agenda items a little bit to prioritize Dr. Z's portions, but I think that we should do the other 2 officers first and then push the committee assignments to afterwards. So the next officer we will take nominations for and vote on is vice chair. Are there any nominations for vice chair? I would like to nominate Bridget.
Thank you. I accept.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations?
Yes.
Go ahead, Irv.
Sarah Marshall.
Okay, great. Anyone else? Okay, great. So I guess I'll follow the same, same pattern and give you each a few moments to say a few words about, I can start the timer, but say a few words about why you would like to serve as vice chair, and we will start with Bridget.
Well, I've been on the school committee now for a year, and during that time, I feel like I've gotten a grasp on sort of the breadth of issues that are in front of the committee, and also a lot of the sentiment and feeling in the community and the way different needs need to be balanced. And so I feel really strongly about having a chance to participate in agenda setting, organizing, and am really trying to put together the systems and structures of the committee in a way that they align really well with our educational purposes. So those are the pieces that that I would say if you vote for me, you'd be supporting. I don't bring the experience of the full year of chair that Sarah has, and I appreciate Sarah's work tremendously this past year. But I do think we're in challenging times, and that some of the leadership I bring to the table could be helpful at this time.
Thank you, Bridget. Sarah?
I would just say that the role of the vice chair is to preside in the chair's absence, and I know how to do that. Otherwise, as we all know, the vice chair also serves on Union 26. So I'd be happy to do it. And of course, whether I'm elected to that position or not, Jennifer, I'm happy to tell you, make the transition a smooth one. Okay?
Thank you.
So.
All right, so we will vote. We will do a roll call vote. So say the name of the person you're voting for, and we'll start with Sarah.
Sarah Marshall.
Bridget?
Bridget Hines.
Deb?
Bridget Hines.
Irv?
Sarah.
And I vote for Bridget Hines. So Bridget Hines is the new vice chair. And the final officer, congratulations, Bridget. Thank you, Sarah. The next officer position we vote for is secretary. And on the Amherst School Committee, the secretary is not the person who takes the minutes or has any sort of like clerical or secretary role, but the chair, vice chair, and secretary of the Amherst School Committee serve on the Union 26 School Committee. And the Union 26 School Committee is made up of 3 members from Amherst and 3 members from Pelham. And that 6-member body, along with the regional school committee, jointly oversee the employment and the appointment of the superintendent and a few other district roles. So I will now entertain nominations for secretary. Bridget.
I'd like to nominate Deb Leonard.
Deb, do you accept?
I do.
Okay, other nominations for secretary? Okay, seeing none. Would you like to say a few words, Deb?
Sure. I hadn't thought about it, but I have learned a lot in this past year, and I feel like a leadership role would be appropriate for the direction that I wish to work in the upcoming year in terms of serving on this committee.
Thank you. Just to be formal, why don't we just take a vote, just to get it on the record? Irv?
There's only one person.
Indeed, there is. We're just taking a vote to be formal.
All right, I vote for the person who's still standing.
Alrighty. That would be Deb. Deb?
Deb Leonard.
Deb. Bridget?
Deb Leonard.
And Sarah?
Deb Leonard.
And I also vote for Deb. Thank you all for participating in that. Okay, so let's see. I think we're going to move to public comment. I'm not aware if there are any voicemails or emails. No voicemails or emails?
Excuse me, I attached the one email,
Okay.
and there were no voicemails.
Thank you. So there's one email on board docs and no voicemails. Are there any members of the public present who would wish to give public comment? Okay, moving on. I think the next thing I'd like to do is the superintendent's update. Dr. Z?
Awesome. Is it on? Okay. Thank you. And congratulations to you, Jennifer, Bridget, and Deborah, your new positions. I look forward to working with you over my next 2.5 years in the Amherst district. So definitely looking forward to that. I'm a little resilient. As it comes up, um, as always, I know the slides that are going to come up. So there is the district priorities, student safety and well-being, healing and stabilization of the district, and data and equity for everyone. There are a couple of things that we wanted to address this evening and talk about. Thank you, Madam Chair, for rearranging the agenda. As you know, I'm not feeling the best this evening. That's a picture of me reading to the students at Wildwood. It was this awesome book about, I can't remember the name. No, okay. But it was an awesome book about a famous athlete, para-athlete. And she was able to finish a triathlon. And I think one of the things that as I look at that picture, I think about is the fact that not only her resilience, but how many people told her that she couldn't or didn't, that often stood in her way. And no challenge became too big or too small. And so she was confident. She worked hard, she practiced, and she pushed forward. And so the children and I enjoyed that read aloud. And I think that with everything that's being faced in the district, that was a perfect cover to put in terms of, thank you, in terms of the superintendent's update. Policy IK. So in the past few months since my entry plan, one of the things that I've been doing is making sure that we document our procedural guidelines and update them. One of the concerns in the beginning of the year, and I think it was brought forth, was how do we promote students? We have a practice of moving students forward, regardless of their performance in the grades. However, Policy IK speaks really to academic achievement, speaks to what we're supposed to do as a district, including informing parents timely and regularly, preparing homework consistently, just giving them that engagement into their children's learning, but also having a plan for academic achievement, because that's the name of the policy. This policy was assigned to the Office of Teaching and Learning. Tanya McIntyre, our director, has been working to put the procedural guideline in place in terms of how the district will promote. Now, I think every time we started a conversation, there was a discussion around retention. And the conversation is, we're not speaking about retention. We're speaking about how do we meet that academic achievement or promote academic success for our students. So when a child moves from one grade level to the next, which inevitably they are going to do, what is the plan for that student to address some of the deficiencies or gaps in their learning? How do we support and improve that? What do we need to have in place as we move them forward? And then for high school, which we know is the end result, what do they do when they get there? So in terms of the elementary districts, Tanya met with elementary principals and other district directors to gather input on developing academic achievement guidelines. Based on these discussions, she's determined that K-6 will have distinct guidelines versus 7-12 to address the unique needs of each grade span. Special attention has been given to ensuring the guidelines support special education and our English learners, emphasizing equity and access, including I would say our marginalized students and students with high needs. The primary purpose of these guidelines is to support the academic achievement policy of IK and to be in full alignment in our steps, not just as a district, but across schools. So we want to codify and make sure that there are consistent expectations for every school within the district. And so I'll stop now so we could talk about policy IK, and then I'll move on to the entry findings. Are there any questions? Yes, Jennifer.
So is what you're showing is not the current policy IK.
It should be. It's what's on board docs.
This is what I have for the current policy IK.
It's not the format.
it's entirely possible.
Oh, this is IKA. Expectation.
Okay,
I apologize.
I see that. Okay, so IKA is what we want to talk about.
No, we want to talk about IK.
Oh,
So that's a mixed copy for me. I'm sorry.
that's okay.
Okay.
So it's confusing, and then the letters are very
Right.
confusing. So do we are we is your proposal to change policy IK?
No.
Okay.
Our proposal is to create a procedural guideline in the district
Okay.
that provides consistency in implementing policy IK.
Gotcha. So
Every-
process for implementing.
Right. Every school has their own practice of what they do, how they document when they move students forward. What does expectation look like to make sure that they're moving? So, for example, but then there are also some things within policy IK that may need to be updated. For example, parents be informed regularly, but then it says at least 4 times a year at the secondary level. One of the things this year in terms of the calendar was looking at how do you regularly inform parents at the elementary level. And I got that from the feedback in the surveys that I did with my entry plan. That parents, and even so the feedback that was given prior, parents talked about consistency and practices across the district. But then in terms of the feedback that I received, they weren't clear on student progress. They wanted more timely information. And so right now, ideally, report cards are given twice a year in the elementary. It's no less than 10 pages, I believe, because it's standards based and there's space for comments. Depending on the grade level. So it could vary. I would say the least is 6 or 7 and the most is upwards of 10, 12 if the comments are hefty. So it's kind of taking that and creating an opportunity to probably progress monitor, to give parents that introduction. And I feel like we got a good segue into that with the calendaring committee. We were able to build in the new calendar proposal that's going out. We were able to build in 3 days of, and I know that was a discussion, the 3 days of parental or caregiver conferences in October, but we also built in 2 days of caregiver conferences in the elementary in March. Thank you, Naibi. Naibi's been leading the calendar and restructuring. So in March. So now, at least that's a step towards trying to engage the parents. The idea is that the second set in March, teachers would kind of hone in on the students who are really struggling and engage with those parents more thoroughly. So trying to get certain things where we can kind of infuse that 3-prong approach to student success.
Oh, sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
Sorry. So now I'm confused about if I've looked at the right policy, but I'll go back and look. But I'm particularly interested in what you're saying and perhaps suggesting about promoting students from one grade to the next. And you know that I'm so disturbed that we graduate 6th graders who are, several grades behind in math, and how that, in my view, sets them up for failure in middle school. So will you be proposing what I would call a policy about promotion? Like, you need to meet these, you need to be at grade level in order to be promoted to the next grade? Is it going to be that sort of cut and dried, or you don't know yet? And will we need to adjust our policy to make it clear, if we want to, how we feel about this issue?
So I think where we're at right now is the vetting stage. Tanya met with the elementary principals. So the idea is that once that vetting goes through, we'll look at it. She is also, and I have also looked at various districts in Massachusetts to see if there's like a set promotion policy. There's not. However, what we are looking at is what are the supports that moves with a child, right? What are the supports that moves with a child to help the next grade level teacher or the next school when they go to the middle school best prepare and intervene in those learning? So that's where the conversation started. We do know that it's going to probably require an update of policy IK. But what that suggestion would be, I think once she's done meeting with everyone, vetting through that, the idea is that for some of the procedural guidelines, because of how new they are, they probably will be brought forth, like once we do the final step to the school committee, kind of to be like, hey, this is what we're gonna, this is how we are going to implement the policy. And then from there, also talk about possible suggestions that we probably have around policy updates. Because some of these policies, like IK, was written in 1986. And so things have changed very drastically since then. And we know that the way how our students are actually, how our students are actually performing, we have to take into account one, their social emotional wellness as well as their academics.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for this. Obviously, certain benchmarks that you revealed in both your entry plan and your the prior review of the MCAS results are important to integrate into this work. My question, well, two questions, well, a question and a comment. My question would be, how does this work intersect with IEPs? In particular, the document that's written for, in conjunction with the families for support and also in terms of meeting those students' benchmarks.
So I know Tanya met with special education as well as the English Learners Program. And one of the key things that we know that happens here is that allowing for modification of learning is standard, right? Teachers are supposed to abide by what's in an IEP. And so what we write in terms of how we implement, for example, I stick with the notification of parents. You would still notify parents in the general timeline because we're not supposed to, we adjust the education based on the IEP, but we're still supposed to offer the students with an IEP the same that we offer our general ed students or students without an IEP. And so we would treat them just the same. It's inclusivity, it's everything. So we inform them within the timeline that we're gonna set forth. And if their timeline skews to say that they're informed every 2 weeks, then they're informed every 2 weeks. So we abide by the IEP, but we also provide them what we would provide any other student.
And then the comment is just kind of a little off the wall, but I'll say it anyway. One of the things they do, I think, at Hampshire College is they identify students not according to the year they're expected to graduate or freshman, but the entry year. And if there's enough fluidity within our student population where people come in at different times, progress through the system at different times, perhaps that's a model that we could work through somehow.
Well, Tanya's working with a team and she's taking notes, so she'll definitely write that down.
Sarah.
You described the report cards. I still call them report cards. Are you satisfied with those, or are you thinking those are too long to be? I heard earlier, I mean, maybe a prior meeting, that maybe caregivers found them confusing or they're just so long they don't. Do you have any thoughts that you would want to share at this point about the assessment?
For me, I want to go through the first round of report cards.
Okay.
I've seen what they look like empty. I haven't seen like a filled report card. So I would like to go through the first round of reporting, possibly with the work that Tanya is doing, survey parents around how they feel the report cards, are readable, are usable, maybe how we can do it better. And then from there, kind of look at that feedback and that data and determine how we can shift and change it. I think that there should be prioritized standards in terms of the curriculum work and us identify what are the priority standards for grade level so that we can hone in on what we're teaching our students. But again, I would want to see what our teachers do and what they produce when it comes to the reporting. And again, I think that for what I've learned so far is having a committee of individuals present works, right? And it's making sure that then we pull a set of elementary teachers in and say, hey, this is the feedback that we received around the report cards. What do you think? How can we make it work for parents and probably for you as well? So I won't go through the update. Okay. Sure. Next were my entry findings. These are just some summaries from the Amherst portion. 21.7% of students in Amherst School District are students with a disability, and that's higher than the state average of 20.2%. Amherst has made significant strides towards placing students in the least restrictive environment with a 79.1% full inclusion rate, surpassing the state average of 66.9%. Some of the district's strengths: strong student engagement and teacher relationships across their schools. I would say that at Cracker Farm, student engagement and creative learning opportunities are strong. Fort River has a strong dual language program promoting bilingualism and cultural inclusivity. Wildwood, for me, is a strong professional development and forward-moving school, especially in the area of equity. They've done a lot of delving into that work, as well as addressing some of the overarching concerns that were plaguing the district prior. Growth areas are addressing our facility needs. You know that we have a new school build. That work has started. There's a lot that's happening, but we also need to know that what's going to happen in the next step. And I had told my team from a couple months ago that we would start working on that, the next steps in a few months, so probably like by March, April. I think we need to get through some of this work and start the conversation for next year. Improving communication with families, which we spoke about. And then there's a need to build greater support from the community through partnerships. I think that attendance rates are inconsistent across the schools, and there are disparities in student achievement, especially for our economically disadvantaged and marginalized students. So I'll stop and see, because I know that in the entry findings was a very vast document. So I'll stop here for questions, and then I'll zoom through the next few slides.
So it's a big document, and I haven't wrapped my mind around all of it. The part that I was trying to wrap my mind around was how the iReady assessments fit in with the MCAS assessments, fit in with progress to the middle school, high school. And it's hard because selected populations, being small enough, aren't represented in all of them. So one of my questions is there a way of pulling together the data so it's more, it's for the entire elementary school system, so that maybe we could see some of those selected population representations? And the other is, how do the pieces fit together? I mean, it seems like the data from the MCAS iReady in the elementary schools, there's a jump between 6th grade and 7th grade that I don't really understand.
So, how do I explain this? So the intent, so yes, we did, I think the dashboard is fully loaded. I haven't taken the time yet with everything else that's been happening to delve in, but I do have it on my agenda to delve in this week, because the email was sent out last week by Jerry that the dashboard is fully loaded. So this week I have it on my calendar to go in and be a data junkie for about an hour and a half. And depending on what that looks like, then we can set up for another presentation for the committee. One of the things I would say around iReady, and having used it and been trained in it and even presented at one of their conferences, is that the intent, right? So first of all, I believe this is our second year of implementation with iReady, second or third, right? I believe we're mostly using it in mathematics. For K2, we are, Tanya, correct me, reading? Yeah, K2 we're using reading. The intent is iReady has a diagnostic which looks at where the students are, talks about what they can do and they can't do based on their grade level and where they are in that year. So the needle moves. When they take the initial diagnostic at the beginning of the year, if they're in 2nd grade, it tracks what you should know as an initial 2nd grader. The needle then moves for a mid-year, and then it moves at the end of the year. What it looks like is it's standards-based. It tells you how students are doing on standards and how they're moving forward. How you tie that with MCAS is that you as a teacher would look at the instructional tool, look at the data, and then turn around and say, oh, they're struggling in this, they're struggling in this, they're struggling in this. Let's say it's geometry or measurement. what ends up happening is when they take it, it becomes a preparation tool or shift for it's supposed to be a preparation tool or a way to shift your instruction to meet the needs of your students. So you can pull a small group that have common areas of need together. You can do the whole class, or you can just have a one-on-one with a student. What ends up happening then is you're building towards standards-based instruction. When you take the MCAS is then looking at how are you performing on second grade standards based on what Massachusetts wants across the board. It is two different data sources. One is more of a summative to look at the whole picture for the year, whereas the iReady, you're tracking throughout the year, and it's becoming a diagnostic instructional tool to shift what you're doing in the classroom. So it's not so much how do we tie them together, which we can, because as you're tracking, you can look and see what's their projected growth. What are they going to, if they're on track for where they need to be. And so, but it's also like one can lead to the other. So to me, it's not so much about the testing, but what is the data saying about that child? I firmly believe I learned long ago in being in classrooms about the triangulation of data. Like no one source of data speaks the truth about a child. You need multiple sources. So for me, you'll have the iReady, you'll have the MCAS, and you'll probably have teacher instruction and grades that all come together to say this is how this child is doing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sarah.
I have many questions, but I'm not going to ask all these little pink slips. But I'll focus on one, and that is I've seen, or I think I see in your findings, a tension between creativity in the classroom and consistency in educational practice. And it seems to me that maybe we want a balance of that. We don't want educators to be automatons, but can you comment on, like, is the balance not as it should be at the moment? Or is it differences in, like, the standards or the curriculum goals?
I think we're still delving in. Each one of the 3 buildings within Amherst are, I'm going to say, have very organic cultures. It's very different. When you step into Cracker Farm, it's one, like, you feel the difference in each one of the buildings. And it's good because the children understand that that is where they belong. It's actually, you're walking into a culture and environment, a climate where the children and the students, it has been built around staff, student, like everything in there is cohesive. It's its own little vacuum. And what you see when you walk in there is that there's teaching and learning happening. Their students are engaged. They are actively participating in lessons. That's consistent. When you step up from a district point of view, what we are seeing is these are instructional practices that we would want to see across the board. These are things that we would want to make sure, like the academic achievement. These are just practices that we would like to see, maybe having parent conferences twice a year. So our role is not to shift the organic or take away from the innovation or what comes from being within that building. It's to make sure that the practice, if you go to Wildwood, the environment, the climate, the culture, the expectation may be different, but what is pushed or implemented as a framework is the same from the district. So that's what I've charged Tanya to do, to make sure that there's a framework in place, a procedural guideline in place that every school can abide by within their own culture.
Thank you.
Bridget.
So it's just a simple question in a way, but it's also probably one of the most complex questions, which is when you're looking at these findings and we're thinking about our elementary school and the transition to the new building, like how are those trains running synchronously? What type of planning and prep is happening? How do these things align with one another?
I think one of my my push has been with the principals and the team is to rethink education as it is and it could be. And I think that's going to be the push, especially with a combination of the two buildings. Some days in my office we call it Wild River. Some days we call it Fort Wood. But in my mind, I think that's a deeper conversation because we are, even though the buildings look alike, we are combining two into one. And that is a conversation that I've been prepping for me, the questions around. I know that there was some work that was done prior, and I want to thank Allison for sharing that with me. And so I was looking at that work that had already started and trying to frame my questions around what are the next steps and what are the questions I would like to ask the team to get us to a place where there's a cohesiveness, right? Because combining schools, I've experienced that, and it's not as easy as individuals think. It's like take two and drop it into one. This isn't Kool-Aid that we mix in. This is literally like lives that are shifting. And for some of the students who have already been into the cultures of these two separate buildings, I think about our kindergartners, our second graders, but even our fourth or fifth graders who are then in 2026 going to combine and be in, whether it's in the middle school or they're now going to be in Fort River, what does it look like for them? And so it's not an easy question, and I don't have the full answer because I've been wrapping my mind around what are the framing questions to start to kind of delve the team deeper into how do we make this successful. And that's one of the reasons why I haven't started to work on a sixth grade move. It's not as easy without framing the full set of questions that I myself have in my mind, but I would like the team to be able to answer as well. Okay,
Thank you.
move on to the next one. So inside an Amherst classroom, what we have is last week, Fort Rivers and Cracker Farm students had a visit from illustrator Raul Colon. At Cracker Farm, there was a musical component where each page of a book was performed musically by students. Students in Fort Rivers' fourth grade class had the opportunity to speak in front of the entire school by sharing their New Year's resolutions during the all-school community meeting. This was followed by a sing-along of Three Little Birds. It was awesome. Additionally, Wildwood held its Martin Luther King Jr. Day Peace March, where kindergartners sang "We Shall Overcome," holding signs they made promoting peace and friendship. And you can actually see this on our social media sites. It's already posted? Already posted. So if you want to see our lovely kindergartners, it's posted. You might not see their faces, but you will definitely hear them singing in the background. We are aware of the media release that's happening. In the upcoming weeks, we have January 24th, this Friday, all teacher curriculum workday. There is no school. January 30th, Fort River Band and Orchestra concert at the middle school auditorium starting at 6:30 p.m. Make sure you're there to support our earliest and our littlest orchestra. February 3rd, Wildwood Winter Band Orchestra. The music teachers work very hard, starting at 6:30 p.m. And then Crocker Farm Winter Band Orchestra at the auditorium starting at 6:30 p.m. I'm noticing that my team did not put whether these are Tuesdays, but I've already told them I really want to
No
start
more
being
Tuesdays.
present. And so I want to say thank you. And I know that as a team, I released a message to the staff around Martin Luther King. It has been very interesting receiving some of the feedback from staff members, just being appreciative. And I wanted to end it with, I think this quote resonates with all that's being faced right now. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Point of
Sarah.
order.
Yeah.
Just, you may not know, Chair, that Shannon has to leave at 7:30.
Great.
Do you? Okay, so perhaps you want to move the second quarter update.
Sounds
Yeah.
good. So with your permission, Dr. Z, can we skip to the second quarter budget update?
Yes, can I step out? Or you do need me? Because Shannon, you have the budget update?
Yes, it's posted on the agenda, and I could also present it on here unless you're gonna pull it up on the big screen.
Are you saying, are you gonna?
I'll leave her. I was going to, but you need me to stay?
That would be good.
Okay.
If you could, thank you. I'm sorry, Shannon, you were saying it's posted on the,
Yep,
okay,
Naby's gonna
second
pull it up.
quarter. Great.
okay.
No,
Do you see-
quarter two.
It's the previous agenda item.
While we're waiting, I'll just make one small announcement. Um, I completed my mentorship and now have the full school business administrator license. Just wanted to.
Congratulations.
That's wonderful.
Yes,
Congratulations, Shannon.
I
Thank
forgot.
you.
I forgot Shannon. So
That's
I
a
would
big
like to congratulate Shannon on that big triumph between this time, November, and now. And it's been hard work, but she has definitely put it in, and she continues to be fully qualified for her role. So thank you.
Super.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Um, I'm not sure if it's up on that screen, but I'll just start if that's okay.
Yes.
Is it up? Okay.
Sure. So
Okay.
this is the one with the green and red and yellow boxes, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. On here, the screen's
Perfect.
just white up there for me.
Okay.
Okay. So overall for Q2, we are in pretty good shape. We're at 39.3%, halfway through the year. There still are some areas of concern, though, the biggest being our district-wide special education. Um, there has been an unprecedented amount of students that moved into the district that had high intensive needs. So it looks it's over budget currently right now by 437,000, and that's after we applied the IDEA that we planned on supporting the budget and our circuit breaker. We've never, from speaking with special education, we've never had this many at this many students come into the district, um, and other high intensive needs. So that is why that is so high. There's also positions that go unfilled in the payroll account lines, that we at and between Q3 and Q4 can do a transfer to move some of those unspent salaries to the special education line, which will um, shrink how much that is over budget by. But that influx of students really was really unprecedented, and we weren't expecting that. So that's our biggest budget item that we're currently monitoring. Um, our district-wide support, which covers foster care and homeless care, transportation, that is high. It's currently over budget. Right now, we do have a higher influx of those students. I do want to just point out on the last page, the previous meeting, I was asked to put a key for what are some of these buckets. So I did put that key in for just some of the things that didn't seem too obvious, and I can add more if that's requested. So our ELE, our English language education account lines we're monitoring. Our translation services have increased, and we don't have. It's been outsourced as opposed to having someone in house do all of the translations. So that cost is higher, and we're constantly monitoring. The facilities is also high. A lot of our trade positions have gone unfilled in our payroll lines, plus the higher cost of custodial supplies um, has increased that facilities line. I'm hoping that with the new contract, and we created a lane, that we can be more competitive with our pay for the trades, and potentially in 26 perhaps we can hire those positions, which would help reduce some of these costs. If that doesn't seem to be the case, going forward for future years, I think we should start to look at just budgeting in that line for facilities as opposed to keeping it as a salary. But I feel like given our new contract or our new negotiations that um, we keep as is and see how that plays out. But overall, I do want to just say that Amherst budget being at 39.3% right now in comparison to where we were for previous Q2s in prior years, we are overall in really good shape, and I'm not concerned for the bottom line of our Amherst budget.
Thank you, Shannon. Questions? Sarah and then Bridget.
Okay. Thank you for adding the key. That's really helpful. A little question and then a larger one maybe. In the key under other programs, what is HEC assessment?
That has So I'm not too privy to the details on that. It's a small budget line of about 4,100, and it has to do with the collaborative in
Oh,
some sort. But
yeah,
it's a
Hampshire
small part of
Educational Collaborative. Yeah, okay,
yeah.
I think. Thank you. All right, my larger question is, since I don't understand all these encumbrances, and I'm glad you're not too concerned at the moment, because I'm scared by these sped numbers. Does this projected encumbrance of 447,000, does that mean that's how much additional funding, like through the end of the year, you think we need?
So that projected encumbrance, it's a negative amount. So that's circuit breaker and
Oh,
IDA reducing the expenses in that column.
can I ask a follow-up?
Sure.
So what do you think? Yeah, I mean, if you, like, assuming no new students come in, how much over budget is this line by the end of the year, do you think?
So a lot of our purchase orders in special ed, the one good thing is we can create a purchase order for the entire year. So we encumber for the year and then we pay those bills monthly as they come in. There of course will be new purchase orders. Will we see them at a big capacity? Likely not unless we get a new student come in.
Okay, thank you.
Bridget.
So last year, when we looked at these numbers before Dr. Z was here, an issue that came up a lot was that our special ed numbers were high because we had to contract for OT, PT, school psychologists, et cetera. And I'm wondering, have we been able to hire for those positions? Are we filling those positions? What's that look like? Because there's also this other thing that we've heard, about hiring being frozen. And I just don't want to cut off the nose to spite the face kind of situation with the budget there, if that makes
So
sense.
we still do have unfilled positions in the payroll lines, and so we do have to contract out for that, which is more expensive. Um, we are still actively hiring for those, but that is a discussion that I was having with one of my colleagues today of how much longer do we hold those positions before we take them out of payroll and we put them in contracted services? How long do we keep a position open? How many years goes by until we just say we're not going to fill it and we actually budget it in the expense line? So that's something that's up for discussion right now. And at this time, we're in that same situation.
Can I
Sure,
do a
go
quick-
ahead.
Justin, I'm wondering, is that something that we can make similar moves when we're talking about contract or that type of thing so that we're more likely to be able to hire into some of these positions?
I definitely think that's something that we should discuss with HR and could come up in the contract negotiations. How can we be more competitive? What is the reason why we're not able to fill it? And look at some of those things. So it's definitely worth talking about.
One of the things that I explained to CPAC is that with a lot of these specialized positions like speech language pathologists and OT, it's often more prudent under their license to work for a private contractor than to work for a school district. We may offer the benefits, but we don't offer the full salary. And so what they would make at an hourly rate working for a private contractor, we can't afford within our scales and even within our services. So it would be something that we would have to talk about, whether it's through negotiations, but it's all about attracting them than retaining them. A lot of times they use us as that transition place to get some levels of experience. I've seen where in districts where individuals come and work for the school district for a year, leave and go to a private contractor and work in the same school district that they were in for more money, but through the private contractor.
Yeah, I had a question about the district-wide support, which I think you said was transportation. Is that also something that's going to, are we going to continue to see that possibly available budget deficit grow? Or is that something that you also have the purchase orders written and will implement as the
So
year goes on?
that's definitely something that could grow. We don't know if a student is placed in foster care or if a student becomes homeless. So that's definitely something that could grow.
Okay.
There is a reimbursement process for those expenses. It's not huge. I think it's around 20% of those expenses
Yeah.
will be reimbursed back to the district. That happens on a yearly basis. But it's something that we'll continue to monitor.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the Q2 budget? Update? Okay. Thank you, Shannon. So, Dr. Z, can you stick with us for two more agenda items? The update on the draft 26 budget and projected class sizes and enrollments, and then just a quick discussion on scheduling the public hearing?
Okay.
Okay. So then we'll go on to 2D, update on draft fiscal 26 budget and projected class sizes and enrollment.
Yeah.
Is this Shannon also?
Yep, I'm happy to. Do you have the PowerPoint up there?
I think we're getting it. And Shannon, I'm sorry, we have you till 7:30?
6
Yes.
minutes.
Sorry.
Okay.
I have something planned at 8 o'clock.
No worries. No worries. You can speed through it. All right, go ahead. It's up.
Okay. Well, the one thing that I will say is that the slide 2 where it talks about our assumptions and slide 3 where it has our projections, that is the same thing that we saw at the last meeting. Nothing has changed with that yet. At the end of January 31st, we actually have a meeting where we'll find out more information around our health insurance. And we'll also have more information on the governor's budget. Our transportation bid we had the bid opening on the 15th. We have the lowest bidder. We're still in the process of doing an analysis, which I do have a meeting about tomorrow to see where that ends up and how that'll affect the budget. So I don't have an update on that yet, but I will certainly in February. But our deficit has remained the same number as it has from the last presentation, which was 1.4 million. The new information that we have with meeting with the principals, we were starting to evaluate what are the potential positions that will be impacted, whether it's reduced, restructured, reallocated. And the principals and I, which has not been approved by the superintendent yet, we have come up with 1.1 million in reductions and restructuring and reallocating. Part of that is from the business office, superintendent and operations office, around and also around facilities and food services, approximately 150,000, which is around 5 positions. Within the elementary schools, combined all three, it's approximately 8.2 positions for Unit A, which is 504,000. Unit B, 1 position, and Unit C, 4 positions at 120,000. We also met with special education, and we know that there are students aging out of Amherst that are out of district placements that will be moving onto the region. So we are going to reduce what we budgeted for out of district placements. So that's about a 250,000 cost savings. It'll transfer to the region, but Amherst won't pay that bill. And we have some savings in licenses that we're not going to renew, around 57,000 that are unused, and that brings us to 1.1. I know that's not at the 1.4, but we're actively looking. We have another meeting that we'll be having before the official budget hearing in February, where we present more detailed reductions in the full budget book.
Thank you, Shannon. So to summarize, if we look at a level services budget with as many assumptions as we have now, including a 3% increase from the town of Amherst, we're at a 1.4 million, almost $1.5 million deficit, and you've identified 1.1 million to make up for that deficit, but that includes cutting 8 teachers, 1 clerical, and 4 paras, as well as the other things on slide 3.
Yes,
that what you're saying?
unfortunately.
Okay.
At this
Um,
point.
and
Point of order, or
Yeah.
something, can Nibby maybe advance this? Thank you, you did, all right.
And so you mentioned the public hearing, which we're going to talk about in a second. I'm going to suggest that the public hearing be held at our next meeting, which is February 24th, if that works for you. And you're saying at that point, you'll have more information about what these reductions will be?
Yep, at that point, I plan on having the full budget book and much more detailed information of the exact positions. At that, so that there'll be time for the public to comment on it, and we have time before the official vote. If there's things we need to change, we can do so before March.
Okay, thank you. Any quick questions for Shannon? Deb?
For the budget book presentation, can you have, or can Dr. Z have ready for us a priorities of restoring positions? Should we wind up with more than one, well, should we end up with less than $1.4 million in reductions?
So I will step in and I say, yes, we will. But note that, like Shannon said, the principals and the team worked on it. So the positions that you'll see were a suggestion, I guess, based on a meeting with the principals. I haven't approved it and walked it through with the team as yet. So once I walk it through with Shannon and Kate to understand the logic behind of it, I will always first restore student-facing positions.
Thank you.
Bridget?
I just have two quick things. One is, in this budget and in our regional budget, then we see positions taken from central office, superintendent, et cetera. And I'd love to see what the impact of both are going to look like on the org chart, because I think it's hard to know what we'd be willing to cut or not cut, depending on what that structure would look like.
So that actually reflects some of what has already started in terms of the consolidation of roles and responsibilities. And so once we've fully finished, I do need to finish organizing the org chart. But every time we can and we work towards this goal, the different goals across the budget, it looks a little bit different. So definitely, I will work to get your updated org chart, but we are consolidating roles and responsibilities.
And the second piece I was wondering is, we're moving into the new elementary school building in the fall
Not,
Fall of 26, next year.
of 26, and this budget starts fall of 26.
No, this budget starts July 1st.
of
Well,
this.
okay.
25.
Of 25, yeah.
25, 26.
So the fall of 26 would be FY 27 budget.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Anything else for Shannon? Thank you, Shannon. Congratulations
Thank you.
again.
Congrats. So, Naibi's gonna take a minute to pull up the Excel spreadsheet. I'm sorry, I did not. Today was a different day. But in September, I had asked the data team to pull the current class sizes, but I also asked them to pull some data around projections, and I asked them to go back 5 years and go forward about 4. So I have the enrollment from 2020 to projections out to 2029 for the Amherst School District. One thing, she's working to pull up the Excel. One of the things that I do know, and I think I need a little more time to do, is to walk through the class sizes. And I see, yeah, the second one that says look for the projections. Yep, there it is, Amherst on the top. So the top is Amherst. You'll see in 2020 that we had a total of 1,093 students in Amherst. At the time when this report was pulled, we had 984. I did not get to ask my data team to update it because they've been working on reports for DESI. So I'm hoping that we can circle back to the class sizes conversation, but also to the updated enrollment, because to me, enrollment is rolling. We've lost students and we've gained students. So we'll see that. Next year, we're projected at 983. 2026, we're projected at 963. Now, one of the things that I wanted to talk about is Wildwood. Because of where Wildwood sits, Wildwood started the school year at 312. They're beyond 312 at this point. And the reason being is that as UMass brings in their instructors and families, they bring young children, and those children go to Wildwood. Wildwood, by October, after this report had been pulled, needed to have an additional teacher in about 2 grades. So, and that's based on the projected class sizes, the size of the classroom, and just, having the ability to educate within this setting. So, although it looks like the projection for 2026 when the new school opens is 983, I know that there's been some conversation about how great it's going to be. Like, it sounds like the school would fit everyone in it. One of the key things that we need to take into consideration is that as a public school system, we can't turn away children and students. And so populations rise and fall throughout the year. So we have to be mindful around how do we adequately project and plan for our students, especially in K-5. Naibi, can you click on the projections for 6th grade, please? Zoom out and scroll down. And I think there's a chart on the bottom. Go scroll down. No? Okay, go up. All right, so what you'll see is in 2020, where our 6th grade was, and then you're seeing that our 6th grade projection is coming down. So by 2026, it's projected that we'll have approximately 146 6th graders. That's the 6th graders that we are aiming to put into the regional middle school. And so that's why the conversation, like I know that I looked at what we had projected for class sizes, but the conversation around class sizes, because this committee would also make the recommendations up to 6th grade, I would have to take into consideration what that would look like for the 6th grade that's moving. I think that right now it looks like we're on a downward trajectory in terms of our student population, but that's taken into account residents. Again, that does not take into account the shift and the influx of if someone comes to teach and instruct at Amherst, at UMass, and they're bringing 2 students that fits into 6th grade, we will not be accounting for them. And that's why we kind of have to balance projections. I'll stop for any questions.
Sarah.
So if numbers are going down, then that suggests there should be, well, except new students come in and we don't know how many. I wonder whether you think our participation in school choice does or will make it harder to accommodate students in our system, because that's a matter that we will revisit in a month or 2. And I don't know if you've broken the class sizes out by school choice.
No,
Yeah.
I haven't. I think that that's something that I do need to frame. I know we have different different slots at each school. And so that's something I can work with the team to frame out, because I believe this is based on current population in terms of Amherst. For me, it depends, because if our current residential population is going down, we may want to open up our schools to school choice in the future, where you can see there's a decline. I think what we've seen too is that individuals' choice into our district because of certain resources that we have, and whereas we think that bringing them in helps us in one area, it kind of affects us in another, which is our budget and our resources and everything else. So I think there's a balancing act in school choice. I think that the conversation really needs to be around, what would work for us. I'm halfway through the year, so I wouldn't have a clear answer on that right now. But I do think if I engage with the 3 principals, they'll be able to give me a clear picture on what they think about school choice.
Deb.
In terms of enrollment, I'm new too. So one of the questions I'd be interested in is what grades were those students? What grades did you have to add? And do those students stay in the system, or on average, does that bubble come and go depending on graduate students and things like that related to longer term student enrollment?
So I think I'll definitely write that down. Like I said, I'm intricately like, sorry, I know about Wildwood because prior to the school year starting, I know Allison reached out to UMass to ask, do you know like the projections? I think she reached out again at the beginning of the beginning of this semester, because that's what really affects her population. And that's why I said each building has its own culture and thing happening for them. So for her, I believe it was second or third grade, I'll confirm. And I knew we needed a third teacher. And then I think it was first grade, we need one now. There's like a series of grades. So I will definitely get that for you. I'll email it through the chair so you could get that information.
Small follow-up. So the UMass partnership is supposed to have an allotment to the Amherst elementary schools to cover costs of student enrollment from campus. So knowing those numbers and being able to see how that trends in terms of the actual amount of money that we get from that arrangement is relevant.
I would definitely reach into that, and I don't know if in our registration we flagged that. So I would see maybe if working with the school, if they can identify who may or may not to assist with that conversation.
Thank you.
Deb, sorry, Bridget.
Yeah. I'm wondering, some districts will have a policy that late arrivals will be put in the schools where there is space as opposed to in their zone schools. So if we're balancing out the question between school increasing class sizes and that, I think most people with school children would prefer a smaller class size and let late arrivals know that they're districted. Of course, there's a transportation aspect, right? But
That's what comes in, because again, we're a public school system. So if we move them to that school, many individuals will also expect us to provide transportation. I know that one of the things that Allison has asked for is in fact like a transfer bus to help like taking students from one school to the next, so that they can, like, she wouldn't be with heavy classes, larger class sizes. I believe Cracker Farm has a smaller class sizes right now than Wildwood and Fort River. And so we just need to look at what those options are and what the cost would be as well.
All right.
I do want to go back to the suggestion for the public meeting being,
Yes, that's the next item on the agenda.
hearing.
The public hearing on the fiscal 26 budget. The next meeting of this committee is scheduled for February 24th.
fifth,
February 25th?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Would that work on your end, Dr. C? Or is that too late? So apparently in 2024, it was February 13th, and in 2023, it was February 28th, as far as I could tell.
so I would like to stick, once we have the date, we can work backwards. So we will definitely work for the 25th. I think by the end of the month, we should have an understanding of where our insurances are and everything else. I think that's fine. I think I am so Shannon will probably be here to present that,
Okay.
because I believe I am at a conference, so I will set her as my designee.
Okay. February 25th.
Yes.
Okay. Sarah?
Since the public hearing is held so that the public may comment for as long as they like on the proposed budget, I think it will be important to issue it and somehow let people know that it's available before that February vacation. If people have to come to the hearing to find out what is being proposed. I don't think I think we may get a lot of angry messages that, people didn't know and, anyway, so that's just a concern I have about hopefully people should have it ahead of time.
Yes, Dr. Z.
So if we're looking at the timeline, if it's the 25th, if the chair and I meet and we post the agenda, the required 48 hours, would it be that the public hearing is the 25th, but we're asking for the budget to be done by at least the 18th or 19th so that it can be posted with the agenda timely?
Point of order.
Yes.
I think for budget hearings, it needs to be 7 days.
Okay. So 1, 2, 7 business days.
I don't think, I don't know
so.
that that's, I don't know
Okay.
that that's the case.
Okay.
We can look in the charter.
Okay.
And confirm that for sure. It sounds like Sarah's asking that it be posted before February vacation. And the February vacation starts February 17th. And so that, I feel like that's a request. So maybe we can talk offline. Assuming that, if there is a requirement in the charter, of course, we'll need to comply with it. But all that said, I think that if the book is posted when the meeting is posted, which would be February 21st, I think that would be okay, not ideal, but it's a balance between giving the public at least that weekend to view it, as well as giving the district enough time to put it together.
Okay.
Can I
Yeah,
follow
Sarah.
up? If that is what will be done, I think we should consider how to let families know that that will happen so that they can know to look for it, especially since a lot of families will be away. So
That's a-
just
that's a good
communicate
point.
early and often about it. Thank you.
We can probably use Parent Square and the website and share the information through even our social media to let everyone know that the budget has been posted.
Anything else on the public budget hearing? All right, Dr. Z, I have one more question for you before we let you go, which is that we're going to talk about subcommittee appointments, including for Portrait of a Graduate.
Yes.
Can you just describe for this committee and for the public what Portrait of a Graduate is and what you're looking for in a school committee member to be on that subcommittee?
So when I presented my report of entry findings, I talked about, unification, building relationships, having a common vision for equity and a common vision for what occurs within our school systems. Portrait of Graduate is a research-based or model that's being used nationwide. Even districts within Massachusetts have a portrait. And what it is it's where we talk about what are the competencies, the skills that a student who graduates from our system, and it would be the regional system, but a student that leaves our system has. And so we have gathered that as a first step to our strategic planning work. Those 2 meeting days are the 29th and 30th, January 29th and 30th. And so we've invited a series of stakeholders, community members from all 4 of the communities. And we need a representative from the Amherst School Committee to come in and contribute to the conversation, because students who leave the Amherst district with their skills and competencies transition into the high school. So that's technically our graduate as well. And then that is the groundwork for our strategic planning work. So it's 2 days. On the 28th, Dr. Allison Leyland is going to be presenting. I'm hoping to have a brief joint committee meeting so that she can present what that work is going to look like. What are the steps to transitioning to our strategic plans, which will also include the Amherst District Strategic Plan. And so we need someone to come in for 2 days and just be a part of that conversation, help to build the portrait so we can move forward.
Okay, and just so I'm clear, is it 29th and 30th or 28th, 29th, and 30th?
29th and 30th,
And what time?
8:30 to 3:30.
Okay, so 2 full days. You're asking for a commitment of 2 full days from whoever
Yes.
approves this committee. Okay.
And if you, and I know some individuals have expressed, we would prefer to have the same person both days, but some individuals or some organizations, because we reached out to all of the different caucuses and whoever has responded, some individuals have said, can we send one person one day, one person the next day? So we're open to that as well.
Okay, thank you. I think we can let you go.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry, community.
No, thank you for being here. I'm going to suggest that we take a 5-minute break and reconvene at 7:55. Thank you. if you're there.
I'm here.
Okay, super. So we've been taking things out of order, so I think the next thing we could do is the AFSCME contract. So Jen Ortiz, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Great, thank you for sticking with us. So,
No problem.
we have an executive session on the agenda. If any member would like to request an executive session to discuss the AFSCME contract before we come back to open session and vote on it, you are free to make a motion.
May I ask a question
Sure.
first? Does Jennifer have any new information for us? That,
Jennifer, is there anything?
No.
new? Okay.
okay.
No.
All right, seeing no motion for executive session, I think we can move to discussing and voting on the contract. All the members have seen the contract before, but that hasn't been reviewed by this body before. So, Jen, do you want to give like a high-level overview on the elements of the AFSCME contract?
Yes, I can do that. Sorry about that.
Thanks.
The high level is there were some, and again, I just want to state this publicly. I want to give all credit to Rupert Roy Clark, who is the facilities director. I'm actually integrating the contract and putting all the MOUs together and doing all the extensive work and making and getting this contract ready for you. So one thing that we did is we went ahead and all the language was made gender neutral. So we removed his and her. That's he went through the contract and changed all of that language to ensure gender neutrality. There were some language changes in terms of clarifying FMLA eligibility, what probationary period is, extending it an additional 90 days. In terms of the highlights, I think, are a change in classification of bus drivers moving from a grade E to a grade F. We created also a lane M for our specialists in an effort to attract people with certain licenses, such as plumbers, electricians, HVAC technicians. We agreed to a 2.5% for the current fiscal year we are in, which is FY25, 3% increase for fiscal year 26, and another 3% increase for fiscal year 27. Looking here, we also increased the longevity payments so they could be in line with other collective bargaining agreements throughout the district. We also increased the retirement benefit incentive to from $750 to $1,000, again, to be more in line with other collective bargaining agreements in the district. And the same goes for the increase in the sick leave buyback from $15 a day to $25 per day buyback. There are parameters around when a person is eligible to earn that buyback, and it has also been, brought in. It's also been aligned to all the other collective bargaining agreements that we have in the district. I'm trying to think here what other highlights there are, so I'm not bogging you down with too much minutia. But in terms of incentive compensation, those are the highlights in terms of compensation. We relooked at the sick leave bank language. We increased the number of days in the bank. So the limit has to be, if it falls under 80 days, we have to pull from every AFSCME member. If there's at least a maximum of 120 days, we do not take a pull from AFSCME members. That was a change from the previous contract. And then for grievance steps 1 through 3, the deadline to submit a grievance for the union has been increased to 10 working days. And I'm trying to, and those are the major highlights in terms of changes. The other compensation piece is the night shift differential was increased from 40 cents to 50 cents an hour for night shift staff.
Thank you, Jen. Are there any questions? Irv?
Jennifer, as you know, the elementary school as well as the region faces huge, devastating budget cuts that are going to affect staff members across the board. One of the questions I have is, what is the financial impact of this contract uh, in, of this contract? And how does that look in terms of the financial priorities for Amherst schools?
So when I got the information from Kate Holcomb, our interim assistant finance director, and there was a projected amount of what we could, of what the budget could tolerate, and what we settled at was actually came in under $4,000 under what that projected amount was. So I think we're, in terms of what the budget can tolerate and what the expected expenses are and what our budget, what we're facing in terms of the budget, I think that Kate did an amazing job of coming up with a creative compensation package. We were pretty far apart where we started in terms of what the team proposed versus what management could do, but we got to a place that where we felt the district was able to support the compensation package that was offered.
Um, Jennifer, the number that I remember that was sent to me, I thought that was for um, both the elementary and the region. And I was looking for what is the specific impact on the Amherst budget and what that
Thank you
number
for
is.
Thank you for that clarification. I'll have to ask the budget office to split that for me and I can send it to you. I can have it sent to you, or if that won't be a problem.
So I would like to emphasize that this is a 3-year contract. Year one of the contract is the current year that we're in, so fiscal year 24-25. So the fiscal 24-25 budget has already been approved. We approved it as part of last year's process. And the percent increase, the COLA increase in this contract at 2.5% is in line with what was budgeted for this fiscal year. So when we talk about the impact to the budget, there's no impact above and beyond what was budgeted for in this fiscal year. And for the next 2 years of the contract, which is fiscal 25-26 and fiscal 26-27, the percent increase that we've agreed to in the AFSCME contract is in line with what the budget office thinks the budget can bear, can stand. So
Yeah,
the impact is
absolutely right.
not
Thank you.
beyond what we think the budget can bear. Irv, do you have another question?
Yeah, I mean, your statement that it's in line with what we think the budget can stand, but that says nothing in terms of what the relative uh, values are in relationship to the amount of money being spent on the increases and the amount of money to be expended or not expended in terms of the layoffs that we are going to be facing in the next fiscal year. And that's what I'm referring to, because I don't know whether we have looked at that and said, all right, yeah, this really fits into our budget model, because we said, 3% would be fine, but when we say 3% would be fine, that's also saying that the layoffs and the cuts that are going to happen are fine because the 3% is fine. And I don't think those things equate, and I think that needs to be thought about.
Any other questions? All right, so I will move that the Amherst School Committee approve the AFSCME contract for 2024 to 2027.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any last discussion before we vote? All right, Sarah. How do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Bridget?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Irv?
No, I don't know what the financial impact is, so I can't vote for the next upcoming years. I can't.
Just a vote would be sufficient. No?
Or
I
abstain.
just said no, but
Great,
I'm also
thank
allowed
you,
to
and
make
I vote
comments.
yes. So it passes 4-1.
Comment?
Yes.
So I'd just like to say thank you to both Jennifers for their work on this. And also, the same thing I said at the region, I really appreciate the creativity involved in looking to find ways of filling unfilled positions, because that does have a big impact on our budget. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. And thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Jen.
We won't mind if you want to leave. Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
You have a good night. All right, so I think we're going to start at the top of the agenda and go back to the things that we skipped. So the next thing is appointments, including for portrait of a graduate. So we've heard that Dr. Z is looking for one or two members to attend a two-day meeting, January 28th and 29th, 8:30 to 3:30, to give input on this portrait of a graduate. Is anyone interested in attending one or both days? Sarah?
I can attend on the 29th. I have an appointment on the 30th in the morning. I don't want to change, so I would miss part or all of that day. Maybe Deb can.
Okay.
So
So you can, Sarah, you can do the 29th.
that's a Wednesday, yes? Yes.
Okay, great. I'm just making a note.
Yep.
Anyone else want to express interest?
Tell me again the dates?
The January 29th and 30th?
January,
8:30
that's,
to 3:30.
And if no one can or wishes to, I'll just be late on the 30th.
which day can't you do, sir?
Well, the
cannot-
morning of the 30th, I'm busy.
I'll make that work, yeah.
The 30th?
Yeah.
Great. Before we make that final, any other thoughts?
About that
Yes,
appointment?
about that appointment. Okay, I'm just giving other people a
Yeah.
chance to chime in. So Sarah for January 29th and Deb for January 30th. Thank you so much. So I'm going to go backwards on the list that Sarah posted in board docs of the Amherst School Committee subcommittees and assignments. So the last one is the policy subcommittee, which I am currently on, although now I don't remember. I know, Deb, you and I are both on it for the Regional School Committee. Was it me who was the,
Yes,
okay.
yes, I
Who was
checked.
thank you, who was the designated Amherst School Committee person on the policy subcommittee. I am willing to continue doing that. If there are any objections. Okay, fantastic. The next is the Elementary School Building Committee, which is currently Deb. Are you interested in continuing that?
I am, yeah.
Okay, great. Any comments? Okay. The next one is MPAC, which is the Multilingual Parent Advisory Council. I am currently the school committee member assigned to that. They meet in the evenings around once a month by Zoom in the evenings. And I actually think I'm going to ask Irv if you're interested in being the Amherst School Committee rep to the MPAC, the Multilingual Parent Advisory Council. I have heard you say, Irv, that you have a grandchild in Caminantes, and I thought this would be a really good fit for you.
It really depends on the meetings and when they happen.
They are
Because
usually
I
in
won't-
the evenings by Zoom, usually once a month on a weekday evening by Zoom.
By Zoom.
Yep.
I can take that.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Irv. Sarah.
You skipped over Amherst Media Rep.
Great. I have them in there. I typed them in the wrong order, but okay, thank you.
Oh,
I am currently sorry, I did say I was going to take them in order, but then for some reason I have them in the wrong order. I am currently the Amherst School Committee rep on the Amherst Media Board, and I would like to continue doing that. Amherst Media is currently in the search for a new executive director, and I've been involved in that search, so I'm interested in continuing doing that.
Love to hear your report sometime on that.
Great. We will have news to
Okay.
share soon.
Great, okay.
CPAC, the Special Education Parent Advisory Council, which is currently Sarah, I think. Would you like to continue doing that?
I'm happy to continue, but if someone else would like to, that's also fine. There are some of these appointments that I think if we can keep them for the academic year, that's
Yeah.
good, but
That makes
it's not
sense.
necessary. So,
Okay.
but I have no challenges for CPAC. Okay. I'll
Great.
continue. Happy to do that.
Next on my list is the Collaborative, which I think is currently Bridget. That's right.
Yeah, it is, but I have a challenge, which is I'm also on the school equity, and they both meet the last Wednesday of the month.
Oh.
And they are almost identical in time. I've tried to go to part of one and the other, and it doesn't work out that well.
Do they meet in person?
They can meet in person with a nice dinner, Usually from Pita Pockets or on Zoom, so you have a choice.
Oh, so one can join virtually. Okay, Sarah.
If it's in person, where?
In Northampton on Holly Street.
Oh, that Peter Pockets.
Deb,
I'd be happy to do the collaborative.
great. Does that sound good to everyone?
Yeah.
Thank you, Deb.
Thank you.
Next on my list is the MASC delegate, which had been me, but I did not attend the MASC meeting last year, and if someone else is interested in taking that on, I would be open to giving that to giving that up. Sarah?
I'm not volunteering. I suggested people bring any corrections to the descriptions so we could just update this.
Okay.
So maybe at some point I could update something we already went by. But just to note that, as you all learned this past fall, there's very limited funds to cover that. So I would just warn anyone who volunteers that if you go, you're gonna pay some of this
Oh,
out of pocket.
I didn't realize that. I don't remember that coming up, but it's possible I just missed it. We don't have the funds to cover.
Well, we didn't this year. Or there was some funds budgeted, but they were not enough to include both the conference fee and lodging and food.
Gotcha.
Deb has.
Deb, yes.
So I was interested in attending, but I was not interested in paying, the fee is like $500 for just the registration, and then there's lodging. So if we were to work, I see this as professional development from our point of view, and I think we should be able to afford it, but I'm not willing to donate that.
I completely understand. I did attend the conference like 2 years ago, and I was reimbursed for it. I think, I mean, obviously I can't make any promises. And if you end up being if this ends up being your assignment, that doesn't mean you're obligated to go and pay out of pocket. But I think that I agree that this is professional development, and that it would be great if we could figure out a way to support this, because I think it can be very valuable. Are you interested in being the assigned person, and then we'll see, or
Sure.
yeah?
I just wonder, a member of the region did go, and I don't know if there was a separate account that funded that, and completely or not. Maybe we could chip in our funds and
Yeah.
have one person also report back to elementary schools.
That would be good. All right. Thank you. Let me make a note. Okay. Next on my list is warrants, which actually has been working out fine for me to sign the warrants, and Deb, you've been my backup. I don't think we've needed it, so I think it's fine to keep that going. School Equity Advisory Committee is currently Bridget, and Bridget, are you interested in keeping that?
I can keep it.
Okay, wonderful. Next on the list is the Superintendent Evaluation Committee, which is not the committee that evaluates the superintendent, because that gets done by all committee members, but it's a representative to the committee to create and manage the input tool that is used to gather information and gather input from each committee member about the superintendent. Irv, do you have any interest in doing that?
Oh, God, I don't know.
I want to make sure we share the load.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. What else is coming up in terms of other committees that are available?
The other two are the JCPC and the Budget Coordinating Group.
I'm definitely interested in the BCG.
Okay.
And Jennifer, you might want to step off.
The JCPC, yeah.
Yeah.
So the Superintendent Evaluation Committee, I mean, as far as I know, it's just school committee members on it, and the committee can make their own meeting schedule. So I feel like, let's see, we've got Bridget on School Equity Advisory Committee. We've got Deb as the Collaborative and MASC. We have Sarah on CPAC and Portrait of a Graduate. We've got Irv on MPAC. We have Jennifer on policy and Amherst Media
And warrants.
and warrants. Thank you. Um, well, why don't we put aside the superintendent evaluation committee and talk about the budget coordinating group?
Before we do, can I make a comment on the superintendent evaluation? I mean, I've only been through this once, but this committee did not have its own tool. So it would be a representative to work with the regional, I mean, there was a small group that designed the tool that all the committees used.
And that group.
That was Anna and William and Irv, I think, and maybe somebody else.
And that was a regional school committee subcommittee.
Right.
And
There-
so did that,
It didn't.
so what is the, so this is on our list as
Yeah,
an Amherst subcommittee, Amherst School Committee appointment. Do we need to send someone or no?
I don't know.
Possibly?
Doesn't, I
Okay.
mean, I don't recall how Irv ended up on the
I
committee.
believe Irv was on the committee as a regional school committee member.
Yeah.
Because actually, in the spreadsheet that you shared, it was blank for Amherst. So I'm actually now wondering, does this committee even have a role in creating that?
Do you remember?
I don't.
Yeah.
I think it was just a regional school committee subcommittee.
But it is important, that the tool elicit the information we need to evaluate. I mean, so it's reasonable to delegate a person to be on that
And yet,
small group.
we don't have that, like, that subcommittee is a subcommittee of the regional school committee.
Right.
And as far as I know, the policy subcommittee is the first time we've had a joint committee. So, we need to make sure that questions on it elicit, or we need to make sure that the tool covers the Amherst Elementary District, but the tool really just is not district-specific, really.
Then I would suggest that the three chairs, and if you've looked at the draft annual calendar, this may already be there, that there be a joint meeting where all committee members can give their thoughts about the tool. So if there is something missing,
Okay.
it's not too late. But
Gotcha.
perhaps we don't have to put a person on that
That makes sense.
subcommittee.
Okay. That makes sense. Thank you. So I'll talk with the other two chairs. Okay, so JCPC. So currently, the past year, Sarah and I were on the JCPC. I'm interested in stepping off and giving someone else a chance to be on the JCPC. Sarah, what about you?
I'm happy to continue that.
Okay. Is anyone interested in JCPC? And maybe we can talk about both at the same time because they're both sort of like town budgety related. Is the budget coordinating group, which is currently Bridget and Irv. And I heard Irv say he's interested in continuing on the
Definitely.
BCG. Is that
Yeah,
right, Irv?
definitely on the BCG.
Okay. Bridget, are you interested in continuing on the BCG? So, Deb, are you interested in being on the JCPC?
Yes, I am.
All right. Great. So we've got Sarah and Deb on JCPC, Bridget and Irv on BCG.
And the town manager needs to know all those
Okay.
appointments.
I will be sure to notify the town manager.
So maybe the BCG members, excuse me, if I can say, I think I alerted you to the next meeting of BCG. Maybe you already knew about it. It was in an email I sent. So I think it's January 30th. Does that make sense? Do you have a normal day, typical day?
Sound good?
I will make sure it's
Okay.
communicated.
Great.
Wait a minute.
The BCG is
Oh, the
going to meet
BCG
on January 30th?
Not JCP.
Yeah, no, that
Okay.
hasn't started.
Okay. All right. Any comments or questions on appointments?
That's it?
That's it. All right, the next item on the agenda is the chair's update. I don't have an update. Sarah, is there anything you wanted to share?
I attached it.
Okay, thank you.
So no need to
Okay,
read it aloud.
excellent, thank you. The next item is school committee announcements or subcommittee updates?
I have two.
Okay.
So the Mass Promise initiative that we passed, I had said they had a sponsor, but the sponsor, they're still looking for a sponsor. So that sponsorship has not yet solidified, and it doesn't look like it's going to. When I say that, so the Mass Promise to Invest group that we based our referendum on about charter schools sending and school choice sending tuition is trying to find a sponsor to a bill. And they're still looking. So we're hoping that perhaps amongst the local districts, we'll find a representative who can do that. And then the other thing is the elementary school building committee met. It's a go. We have CTA is the name of the company who will be doing this phase of the project. They're going to be pulling off this big chunk of earth that they stuck on top of the site to make it settle. Let's see. And I think they're looking, I wrote it down, they're looking at starting, they still expect the building to be finished by summer 2026, move in fall of 2026. There'll be other things to do past that point. And I think that's it. But I had a date for when they were gonna start, but I don't have it here, so soon. That's it.
I haven't.
Yeah.
I have a question. I have been reading about these 4 rotaries on that street in front
Yeah.
of is that happening and or who makes that decision about how that's going to get planned?
The town council controls the public ways, and there's no money in this building project for any of that work. And I think they didn't like the plan. Too many rotaries,
Right.
too many not safe for pedestrians or kids biking to school to have it. So I think it's gone back to the drawing board. It's
Okay.
my impression.
But it's a town council decision, not it's
Because
not
they're
like
the key, it's a public road.
Right.
It's doesn't have anything to do with the school's property.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Question? But it goes through, not the town council, goes through which subcommittee? There's 2 that are, I keep
Whether it's
hearing, there's one with a T.
CRC or TRO.
I think it's, I don't know. It could
Well,
be.
I think it already did all that.
Okay.
And then maybe got, I don't know, if
Okay.
shot down is
Okay.
accurate. So I don't think I don't think there's a final plan.
Yeah,
Okay. Thank you.
thank you.
Other school committee announcements or subcommittee updates? Okay, moving on to the next agenda item, which is approved minutes. So it looks like we have minutes from the December 17th meeting. Thank you, Sarah, for generating these.
Somewhere.
Has everyone had a chance to read them, and any comments or questions? So I move that we approve the December 17th, 2024 minutes.
I'll second.
Thank you. Final comments or questions? Bridget, how do you vote?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Irv?
Yes.
And Jennifer is a yes. Thank you. Next is the warrant report, which the warrants, so just as a reminder, we are no longer going to read the warrants aloud, but all of the warrants will be posted on board docs in the warrant report agenda item. Thank you, Sarah, for posting them. Next, we have accept gifts, but I don't think.
Yes.
we
Yes,
do
there
have
is a
gifts?
late breaking gift.
Excellent. Would someone like to read
Oh,
the?
here. Hold on. You want me to make the, okay. I move that we accept a gift from anonymous multiple individuals of gift cards valuing valued at $225, and a gift from Ted Sulos. Also, gift cards valued $75 for a total cash value of $300.
And I will second that. Any comments or questions? Irv, how do you vote?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Bridget?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
And Jennifer's yes. Thank you.
And thank you to
the
our
donors.
benefactors.
I think our next agenda item is annual agenda and communication regarding capital needs.
Right. So Sarah Bess mentioned at the regional meeting that she had drafted an annual agenda. All the chairs met together to discuss their agendas and talk about what might be joint, when we should remember to have joint meetings, so we aren't asking people to do the same thing 3 times. So, as Jennifer said, it's up to the chair to plan the agenda, but I would have found this so useful. So, it's yours to do what you want with, Jennifer, but I did want to discuss, I thought this was a good opportunity to discuss something that we didn't have time to talk about last month, and that is this issue around capital needs and how and when we know about what the elementary district's capital needs are and how we get in line to ask for money if there is money available. JCPC is the regular sort of process for funding needs. But then, as we know, sometimes at the end of the year, the town has extra money, and then there's an opportunity to spend more money on capital needs. And I think it's safe to say the Amherst School Committee felt left out of that process. So I've talked with one counselor, and I talked with Dr. Z about this, and maybe some background would be useful. It used to be that the facility director for the elementary schools was employed by the town and reported to the town manager. So it's possible that the town manager, and that's no longer the case, right? The facilities director for the elementary school and the regional properties now reports to the superintendent. So possibly there's a communication gap. Possibly the town manager is not as aware of the capital needs and the urgent ones of the elementary schools as he might be for other town departments. So I spoke about this with Dr. Z, so she's going. I think she's going to make sure that she is kept apprised, and he, the town manager, is kept apprised, but which is great. But I also wondered if this is something that we should have explicitly reported to this committee, maybe once a year. Like, what is the condition of our infrastructure? What do we see coming down? Is like urgent needs, or what's our plan? I mean, the projects that are submitted into the JCPC process don't come through us. They go directly from the administration to the town manager, so we don't hear about them. So I wondered if we might want to make, it doesn't have to be in connection with the budget cycle, but just have every November, we're going to hear a report about our capital infrastructure.
Deb,
Go ahead.
no, oh, sorry, Irv, I got you, just 1 second. Don't we approve a capital budget when we approve the operating budget? Don't we also, is that what
We do that for
gets
the region.
submitted to the,
We
oh,
do
for
for
the
the
region?
region has a capital budget.
And
Because
the
there's a
elementary-
separate region assessment for
assessment.
town.
And the elementary doesn't.
No, I think it's just through the
Yeah.
JCPC.
Yeah,
So,
And so you're talking, Sarah, about both the regular process of going to the town manager and going through the JCPC, as well, and so those are sort of like planned things that we know ahead of time, that are capital needs that we're going to have, as well as needs we have that could be funded by a surplus when the surplus is discovered or found
My
certified.
thinking is that this committee only finds out after JCPC is done what the Amherst elementary schools are going to get. Okay, they don't know ahead of time, except for the members of JCPC, you know, can see what the requests were submitted. But it just it completely bypasses this committee, and I'm not saying that's inappropriate. It's just that we're kind of the last to know. We're
Right.
just the last to know.
Yeah.
So I'm just talking about just a report on
Mm-hmm.
the condition of our physical assets and what's coming up,
Okay,
what needs we see.
thank you. Irv and then Bridget.
So two things. You know, what Sarah's saying is correct. I always, when I was on JCPC, always wondered how did those items get there? And I really found out that it was sort of like a mysterious process. However, in speaking to the elementary school, we can bear in mind that the new school will be coming online, but we still have Crocker Farm, and will have Crocker Farm, and that is something that we need to pay attention to. In other words, I thought and I think there should be a deferred maintenance schedule for all buildings. It's for all school buildings. So it'd be really critical to know if there is a deferred maintenance schedule for Crocker Farm. And if there is one, that those items need to be added to whatever agenda JCPC has.
Thank you, Irv. Bridget?
Yeah, I appreciate this, Sarah. I think, yeah, that it was a little bit frustrating this year to know what the needs were of the schools and then to see the process go forward without us. I have two thoughts. I'm wondering if we can align the timing of those reports so that they're lining up in a way that we are having discussion before they go to the town committees. So let's say, I don't know, early September for the free cash, or JCPC, when do they meet? In
February, March.
in February or March, so maybe twice a year, we have it on the agenda and we get a report. And then if there's something that we really want to fall behind, this committee can chime in by sending a note of support or something like that as well. The final thing I wanted to say is this isn't just important for our knowledge, but many people get their information about what's going on in the schools by following school committee. And so I know the community has big interest in certain things happening in the schools in terms of capital needs as well.
Thank you. Did you have something, Deb?
Yeah, I'm trying to pull it up, and I can project it if I can. The capital needs of the elementary school district, the Amherst School District, is part of the 5-year capital plan of the town of Amherst. So there are lines in that plan that have to do with when and where, not when different things take place. The caveat to that is, as you know, the Crocker Farm fire alarm system had to be replaced this year because it was malfunctioning. And on the 5-year capital plan, the town's capital plan, that particular item is scheduled to be replaced in FY 2029. So it bears re-examining. I don't know when and how this whole plan was developed and how these things fit together, or in fact how these particular items fit with the things that go to JCPC, but we will be having a new director of facilities, so I think it makes sense for that person, well, in a combined position, for that person to review our facility needs and talk to our superintendent and town manager about whether or not that 5-year plan is accurate.
That's a very good point.
Jennifer,
Yes, Sarah.
if I could add, I believe that plan you're talking about is generated by the JCPC.
Okay.
They have like a 10-year spreadsheet
Yeah.
of, the big wish list. And they pare it down. And it's not set in stone. I mean, because things happen, right? Or needs change. So it's always in flux, but it's, to give people a sense of like what you see on the horizon for capital needs.
Right.
But that's, I think JCPC is the process that generates that. And again, all the school items get onto that 10-year wish list, I believe, directly from either the facilities director or the superintendent, but right to the town manager.
Okay. And then a couple more things. In terms of surplus, I will continue to emphasize the fact that the window for finding out what the surplus is small to non-existent. This year, free cash, which contains the surplus, was certified at the end of October, and we saw the surplus along with the actuals for FY24 for the first time November 4th. By November 1st, the town manager had submitted to the town requests for how to allocate the free cash. So there's a process part of this whole complicated thing, not just, hey, we need to tell people what our needs are in September, but we really need clarity on whether or not there is whether or not those funds are accessible to the schools. And in particular, the request for this year for the region was that if we were to request funds, they should be funds related, out of the surplus, funds related to decreasing our operating costs. And that's a really hard box to check. So there's issues connected with it that I think involve some more higher level discussions.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you. I think that, like you're saying, you're of course correct that the window is very small between when the surplus is certified and when they decide what to do with it. But that doesn't mean that we can't be, if possible, be in conversation with the town in the weeks leading up to that.
Yes.
To them finding out what the surplus is. Yeah.
They have a good sense of what their surplus is before the certification process.
Right. Sarah.
That's why the first thing I said was that there's this communication piece between the school administration and the town manager that we just need to see and encourage so that they can leap on on the opportunities. We don't have to, we don't have to know, but it doesn't take action from us to get in line. If there's regular communication with the town manager, then maybe he will know, oh yeah, the school really needs X.
Right.
And I do have one more thing.
Yep. Go ahead.
So in my meanderings through town council meetings, one of the things that I have expressed concern about, mostly at the region, but I want to say it here as well, is that the process for which the town is possibly planning on paying for the capital projects coming ahead, not the elementary school building, but the DPW and the fire station, involve a financial models put forward by the town manager's office to the town council. And all of them involve really reducing the availability of capital funds for capital projects with the intention that a chunk of it, about half of what's currently allocated, will be going for debt service for one of those buildings, separate from surplus, and building up the capital stabilization fund, which is intended to pay for one of those projects in cash. So going forward, and town council has not voted on any of the 4 models, and I'm not entirely sure where they are in the process. But I am pretty sure that there's going to be a big squeeze for capital needs for all town facilities, including Crocker Farm and anything else that we need from that. So that's an important thing to keep in mind as we have these conversations.
Thank you. Bridget?
I think two quick sort of like questions. Are you just adding those to like notes for agendas, or do we need to make a motion or anything official to like get those things onto our calendar? Is that something you do in agenda setting? Or?
Yeah, I'll do it in agenda setting and also in conjunction with Dr. Z.
And then the second is probably not right now, but if at some point the 4 models are locked down and it really comes down to $3 million a year only for all town departments for capital for the next X number of years, then I think this committee before that's locked into stone should make a statement.
Yes, I agree.
Me too.
Anything else on this agenda item, communicating capital needs?
Thanks for putting that on there.
Yes, thank you. Okay,
Well-
future agenda planning. Does anyone have any thoughts they'd like to share on future agenda planning? I have one, which is that, according to news reports I read today, the Department of Homeland Security issued a new memo that allows immigration officials to enter schools to make arrests. And I'd like us to, the committees, to talk about how we can protect our staff, students, and families from this and any other new policies coming out of the federal government that could affect them. So I don't know what that looks like, and if you guys have any ideas, let me know, but I'll be thinking about that for the next agenda.
We may, if, I would hope that the state attorney general will give us an opinion about whether that's going to be
Yeah.
legal, just because they want to, may not mean
Sure.
that they can. So,
We'll keep an eye on it.
yeah, we
Yeah.
definitely will want to know. And, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Irv,
This-
and then Deb.
Yeah, this is really important because Trump and his nominee for Homeland Security has made it clear that sanctuary cities will be targeted. Amherst is a sanctuary city. And so we can expect to be targeted early on. So I think it's really imperative that the schools, along with the town, have a plan, and that plan be known to all of us. I mean, because I really believe that the Homeland Security nominee is really serious and will be going after some what he would consider to be low-hanging fruit in terms of sanctuary cities. And Amherst definitely will be on it. Massachusetts and all other towns will be on it. And so, yes, we need to get this done ASAP.
Thank you, Irv. Deb.
So, yes, and reminding us as well as the community that our policy implementation through the plan is the job of the superintendent. So we will be asking her for updates on her plan as she is able to develop them. My understanding is both the Attorney General's office and the ACLU are working on plans to provide for the public so that we don't have to figure this stuff out on our own. And possibly other
Maybe
groups.
MASC too. Yeah.
Thank you. Anything else on future agenda planning? All right. I move we adjourn.
I'll second.
Irv, how do you vote?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
I vote yes. Bridget and Sarah.
Yep.
Thank you all.